welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 141 for the 1st of July, 2011. July, Tam month. 2 short weeks, and I'll be on that plane heading for Las Vegas. I can't wait. My calendar is being ticked off as I speak. But today, for the Skeptic Zone, we have an interview with John Rail from Los Angeles. John is one of the people behind the new group, well, newish, Skeptically Pwned. You've probably heard the ads on the Skeptic Zone. I met John, I think about a year ago in California, and he kicked me, or I kicked him, or I can't remember, but I'm sure we'll find out soon when I interview John all about his new project, which is doing Skeptically Pwned videos and more. That interview coming up at the top of the show. And that will be followed by a think tank. Yes, I love doing a think tank. Dr. Rachie and Joanne Benham, who came along the other night, for a nice Chinese dinner, a couple of drinks. Diet Coke, of course. Well, we should go back to champagne, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, and we had a nice long chat. And this time, we actually cover quite a few listener emails. You know, people write in to us about questions or points of view. So we're going to cover some of those today in the think tank. And a big thank you to some Skeptic Zone friends and fans who have been coming along to be part of the studio audience for the filming of the television series The One, which I take part in. I'm not sure when that's going to be broadcast, but we're filming at the moment. Great fun to be there in the studio, and good to see some skeptics, holding the fort there in the audience, which is, seems to me, mostly believers, but there you go. And don't worry, I'll be telling everybody as soon as I know when that show's likely to be broadcast. So you can tune in and have a laugh at me sitting up there. Well, today's a bit of a nippy day here in Sydney, a bit chilly, so I think it's time to rush downstairs, get some hot chocolate, bung it in the microwave for about a minute. Enjoy that while you listen to The Skeptic Zone. Now, folks, I wonder if you've ever been pwned, sent up, caught out, made a fool out of, words to that effect. I've been skeptically pwned a few times, and I'm glad to say that I've got one of the greatest skeptical pwners out there, John Rail from Los Angeles. Hi, John.
Hey, how's it going, Richard?
I'm doing really well. Now, I met you, I think it must have been last year or early this year or somewhere in the midst of time, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was around a year ago.
That's right, at a nice beach party that Brian Dunning...
Orange County, and if anybody from LA knows, I drove all the way to Orange County to see you just because I figured you're coming all the way from Australia. I could make that treacherous journey.
I remember that well because Dr. Rachie and I were fresh off the plane that day from Australia, and then there we were. Next thing we know, we're at some beach party in the Orange County and having a great time. And that's where I met you, of course. And
with the Dunning and everything.
With the Dunning. And I'm so interested to find out more because I do play your ads on the Skeptic Zone. This is where...
and we appreciate that.
Skeptically Pwned.
False claims get kicked in the nuts.
False claims get kicked in the nuts. And I think there's a photograph of you kicking me or me kicking you. I can't remember.
You're kicking me, actually.
Am I? That's right. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you put this interesting group together, and what's your take? Why have you gone down this angle?
Well, I mean, we all have something to contribute, and frankly, I'm not a scientist and decided I never will be. But I dig the scientific method, and I want to promote it in some way, and I've always been a comedian / actor / writer. So it was actually around the election, the 2004 Obama election. I made a mini documentary where I gave my vote away, and because you can actually do that. You can sign in a voter assistant. And I did that, and I gave my vote away, and I made a little mini documentary about it, and Penn Jillette saw it, and Penn Jillette talked about it, and I was like, holy shit, I got to do more of this. And, yeah, then I just decided to make sketch comedy for the skeptics.
And that has led you now, I mean, apart from making wacky ads for the Skeptic Zone, it's led you to... get really into video production. I've had a sneak peek of one of the videos you're putting together. That looks really funny, and I'm really jealous. I want to fly straight over there now and appear in your next video.
Dude, that would be amazing. That would. Yeah, no, we've kind of gotten good at making short movies, as it were, because, yeah, seriously, at the beginning, we were just monkeys with a camera, and we had some friends who had a little technical expertise, and they helped us in post-production, and we've just been increasing and adding to our arsenal of skills ever since. I think you'll notice in this recent one there's some cool animation.
And who's really the creative force behind that? Would you say yourself, or you sort of bounce off other people?
Yes, I'm the main force behind it, but I find other people to use for my purposes. So I do most of the writing, I do most of the directing, most of the cinematography. But then, my animator / girlfriend will come in and make amazing art and animation for the videos. And then I'll get, some feedback from other editors and, ask people what kind of software can do this. And because, I didn't go to film school. I'm not I'm not a film student. But I know enough filmmakers out there where I can, ask them in layman's term, well, how do I do this? And they're like, oh, go get this software. And I'm like, awesome. So it's free for everybody now. We can all
living in Los Angeles. You've probably got a few people there you can find that'll help you out with video production.
Yes, a ton. So most of the artistic inspiration is mine, but it's through a lot of other people's help.
Yes, I've had a sneak peek of one of the videos, and this one was dealing with martial arts, and I understand that everybody can see that probably about the time this show goes out.
Right about now, yes.
That was enormous fun. I was laughing so much when I was watching that. What can you tell me about the making of that, and why did you choose that topic, and who is the girl?
The girl, the kick-ass girl, was actually my girlfriend. / animator / kung fu fighter, and the guy who I found, he was also incredible. I went to college with him, and he was on tour with Walking with the Dinosaurs.
Oh wow!
Which it was this huge live production of that BBC documentary CGI dinosaur program
that toured Australia too.
Oh, nice. Well, he was the guy inside the raptor.
Huh?
Really physically built, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And, so that's who they were. And they just, he happened to be in town when I wanted to shoot it. And so that's how we did it. And I did all the choreography, but he was able to pull it off.
Yeah.
I had ideas I brought to the table. I'm like, are you able to do this? Can you do that? He's like, yeah. And then I'll throw in a spinning kick. I'm like, oh, nice. Perfect.
Now, I love it because it's concerning the great wacky topic of bullshido. Bullshido, isn't it?
Yes, or as I like to call it, Taekwondo.
Now, why did you choose that topic exactly?
Well, that one, just because, if you're familiar at all with Kung Fu cinema, there's just so much fertile ground for comedy. And so I figured, hey, that's the one we got to go with.
Well, I think it worked very well because there's great scope there for all sorts of things, and visually it's fantastic. It's very exciting and it's very funny.
Oh,
and of course there are so many misconceptions and myths and mysticism wrapped up in martial arts.
Yeah, and I think that's what inspired me most is I watched a few online videos. Actually, I'll give credit where credit's due. I listened to the Skeptoids podcast about Bullshido.
Aha, yes.
And I literally didn't believe what he was saying. I literally, I'm a skeptic, of course. I was like, no way. No way do people believe this nowadays. 2011, nobody believes that a force punch is real. And you hit the YouTube, and there are dozens of videos where people are, using force punches, and their opponents feel weakened and hurt and injured. And the most inspiring video I saw for all of this was this TV series called Martial Arts Miracles. And there's this clip out of it where this guy, he actually he does this ritual, performs this huge, involved, 20-minute ritual. He's spitting everywhere. He's wrapping his arm with psychic energy. He pulls out a huge blade and chops his arm.
I've seen.
Oh,
yes, that I've seen. It's horrible.
Yeah, and just blood red starts gushing. Yeah. And the host just looks at the camera like, I don't know what to do. Call the paramedics.
Yeah. It's absolutely staggering. He was so convinced of his own special powers that he went to that length.
Yeah, he went for it. And so it was just shocking that somebody, grown men who potentially have lethal abilities believe in such craziness.
Well, at least he did it on himself and not a volunteer.
Yeah. These aren't just regular believers in bullshit. These are dangerous believers in bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. It also reminds me of the video I saw of a group called Yellow Bamboo. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, absolutely worth checking out. Yellow Bamboo were a martial arts group. I think they were based in Indonesia from memory. And they were challenged by other martial artists who said, look, if their claim was that they could, if someone was attacking them, they could just repel them with psychic force, magic, mystical, martial arts, chi, or whatever it was.
Wait, is this the one where the old guy gets his ass handed to him?
Well, that does happen, yes. It's on a beach. So they've come to some beach, and these other guys just charge at them and completely bowl them over. And, as you would say, they were absolutely pwned. Yellow Bamboo, worth checking out, and listeners too, if you just Google Yellow Bamboo, and I think there's a link from the Skeptic's Dictionary for that one. But
nice.
Certainly worth checking out because it's a real-life case of this sort of thing being put to the test.
No, I actually saw the other one that Brian Dunning talked about, the old guy who had like a $3,000 challenge that he could not be beat because of his psychic energy, and some mixed martial artist just beat the poor man silly.
Shouldn't laugh.
At first it's funny. The first 30 seconds, it is hilarious. But 2 minutes in, after this old guy is getting the crap kicked out of him by this young guy, it's very sad.
It is.
And then it becomes funny.
I agree.
Again.
Yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from. It's like there's a point where it's like you have to feel some empathy because someone's basically having their worldview torn apart. But you can be torn watching that sort of thing. But I think I wasn't torn watching the Yellow Bamboo. That's quite funny if you check that one out. Now tell me about some of the local groups in your area that you're involved with.
Okay. Well, because of this whole skeptic thing, it's kind of hard not to get involved. And, the first year I was doing my web series, I was just purely online, purely armchair skeptic, not really getting in anywhere. And then, came the IIG Awards and Drinking Skeptically. And all of a sudden I started meeting all these cool people who really, not only were enthused, but they were like, they wanted to utilize my skills. And I'm like, what skills? And they're like, no, we could use a guy like you. And so because of that, I became involved with the IIG, the Independent Investigations Group, otherwise known as the ghost hunters who turn on the lights. So
I like that.
Yeah, so I became involved with them because they had started a media group to catalog all the cool experiments that they've been doing the last decade. And I said, what we really need is a promo, something that'll show how cool we are and what we do is innovative and so much different than all the other ghost hunters that are out there.
Yeah, and it is too. And of course the tagline. In fact, come to think about it, the female voice we hear on your ad, which is this one,
where false claims get kicked in the nuts.
is that the same girl who's in the video?
Actually, yes. My girlfriend / animator, Jen Brown, by the way, her name is Jen Brown. She is the one who plays the ghost. But the cute little voice at the end, that is a friend of mine. She's an actress, Larissa McCoy, and she perpetually sounds like she's 12 years old. So I knew I had to use her for that voiceover.
You're just surrounded by talent.
Yeah, it's insane. And because of the IIG, the promo I was doing was strictly at first just interviewing other IIG members. And, cutting up a cool promo, slick promo, which, by the way, will also be released very soon, though not when this podcast airs. But before TAM, we'll have it out there. And it just kind of grew and grew to the point where every member was coming up to me and saying, who you should interview next? You should get Paul Provenza. You should get Emery. You should get Brian Dalton. And so soon I just started interviewing all these people, like not for the promo, just, get to know your local skeptic on high def.
Well, I'm not a local skeptic, but I hope you'll get to know me. I hope we can click at TAM and you can find a 10-minute period of time where I'm not being rushed around or trying to sleep to recover from my no sleep.
Desperately try to hunt you down. And
it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. In fact, if anybody sees me at TAM, please bring me a coffee. So in one hand, extend your hand to greet me, and in the other hand, have a coffee ready because I'm going to be whacked out of my head. But I will make time, John. We will get together. I love what you're doing. Now, where can people go to check out the video and more?
People can go, Web 2.0. I wouldn't even say go to skepticallypwned.com. I'd say go to youtube.com/skepticallypwned. But if you want the cool flash, the cool look that we're going for, go to skepticallypwned.com, which will inevitably take you to youtube.com/skepticallypwned.
One way or another.
Yeah, it's such a strange beast these days. Like our own individual websites have become so personal. Like I can't remember the last time I actually went to I'm trying to think of a website I went to, like an individual website, because I always go to the third-party websites, the YouTube, Facebook.
I don't know how you find the time, and I've also learned that you've got some very exciting guests coming up.
I do. Some that were very, very desperately fought for. I have upcoming interviews with Tim Minchin.
Tim Minchin, the Australian entertainer, skeptical singer, performer.
Yeah, who, by the way, you guys all know, and he's this international star, and I've seen all his work, and I love him to death. I try and brag to my friends at work or something. I'm like, dude, I'm interviewing Tim Minchin. They're like, who? I'm like, yeah. Like, the man's an international celebrity, and I can't really, brag to anybody except my fellow skeptics. But that one, he was really nice about it. I actually made him a full video requesting his interview, and he emailed me back. He's like, love the video. I'd, be more than happy to give you some of my time while I'm in LA. So that was great. And I also have Bill Nye coming up. Now, Bill Nye, for our American listeners, is very well known, but for our international listeners and Australian listeners too, who is Bill Nye exactly? Oh, Bill Nye is the science guy. He, like way back in the day, just like Mr. Wizard, he him and Disney produced 100 episodes on every scientific topic you can think of. And just made this really cool show called Bill Nye the Science Guy, just, explaining every week a brand new scientific topic. And, if you're from America, especially, he lives in your psyche. There's not a kid, above the age of 20 that does not know who Bill Nye is. Wow, that's a big score then. And you've got a lot of people who would be very happy. I guess for nostalgic reasons, too, that you have Bill. Yeah, and also not to mention that he's going to be at TAM 9 this year. Well, there you go. Another TAM time. Yeah. So, very excited. We're doing a lot of work, and we got a few upcoming episodes of Skeptically Pwned, but always feel free to email me. I'm readily available, and give me any suggestions you guys might have.
Check it out, everybody. Have a look at the video. It's fantastic. The website's Skeptically Pwned, that newfangled internet word. John Rail, pleasure to chat with you, and I look forward to having a coffee with you in a few short weeks at 10.
Thank you very much, Richard, but I'm going to be drinking Diet Coke. I don't fear aspartame.
Hi, this is Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. The best way to share the benefits of critical thinking and science with someone who doesn't listen to podcasts is to give them a book. I invite you to check out my newest book based on selected episodes of the Skeptoid podcast, Skeptoid 3, Pirates, Pyramids, and Papyrus. 50 chapters contain something for everyone, questions you've always wondered about, and subjects to intrigue and challenge your friends. Pirates, Pyramids, and Papyrus by Brian Dunning, with a foreword by Richard Saunders of the Australian Skeptics. It's available now from major online booksellers as a paperback and as an e-book. Or get a personalized copy from Skeptoid.com. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
I really like Maureen. Very funny. I wonder where that is. Newcastle, maybe? 10 scooters for $39.
Dr. Raichi and Joe Benamu are talking about drinks. What's that? That's a lovely family picture, is it,
Oh,
Joe?
no, that's not what I was meant to be showing you.
She's still...
We seem to be starting every episode of The Tank that I'm on these days by me embarrassing myself in one way or another.
Oh, Joe, we do understand. But welcome, Dr. Raichi, and welcome, Joanne Benamu, to the Think Tank. Cheers.
Cheers. Diet Cokes all round.
It is tonight. It makes for clearer thinking than all that champagne we used to drink, I think. And it's great to be back in our favourite club down the end of the street, which isn't too busy tonight. It isn't too busy, and we've all had a nice Chinese nom. In fact, you didn't even finish yours, Joe.
I didn't. Nom fail. No.
Nomming fail.
It is a nomming fail. I'm very
It is a nomming fail.
disappointed in Joe.
Very nice to see Dr. Raichi back in town, and you were just visiting our friends in Melbourne, Dr. Raichi. How did that go?
Really, really well. I did a talk for Victorian skeptics and a talk for Melbourne skeptics. There's now 12 groups in Victoria, skeptical groups in Victoria. So, yeah, it was fantastic. I had a great time. Gave a couple of talks and met lots of people who I hadn't met before.
Yeah. What were your talks?
Oh, well, it was really just a summary of Dr. Raichi reports with a little bit of stuff about Dr. Google, also hair analysis, how to spot a scam, what red flags you should look for, and some of the sort of investigations I've done over the years. Yeah,
Great.
So it was good.
I noticed people were live tweeting your talks.
Lucas Randall was live tweeting a lot of Monday nights. Yeah. It was hashtag Raichi Rant, actually.
It was. And it's interesting you should say hair analysis, because I noticed that Choice Magazine have brought out a report. I don't know if you've caught up with that. It's on their website about dodgy diagnostic modalities.
Oh, I think I saw someone had posted that today. I haven't had a chance to look at it, though.
Yeah, well worth looking at. Listeners, if you go to the website of Choice Magazine, which is, I think it's choice.com.au, a brilliant magazine, consumer watchdog, good friends of ours, but they've got a story up there about dodgy diagnostics, including iridology, live blood analysis, hair analysis. So worth checking out indeed. And Raichi, you're still getting great coverage from an article you wrote a little while ago for Cosmos magazine, talking about magazines.
Yeah, Cosmos sent out a press release about my opinion piece, which was essentially about the NHMRC draft statement about homeopathy, where they say that they want to make an official position, which is that homeopathy is unethical and not efficacious.
Yep.
I've done 3 interviews now, all with the ABC. I did one today, which was a pre-record, which is going to run tomorrow, which will be 2 days ago to listeners. Anyway, I'm going to try and grab that and so I can get it up because it was really good today.
Yeah, if we can grab that, we'll certainly play it on the Zone in an upcoming episode, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, somebody, I can't remember her name. I think it's Laurie. She sent me an email saying that, and this is something I'd been thinking about too, but I hadn't had time to chase it up. If it's a draft statement and they're going to consult consumers, as they say, there was nothing really contained in that statement about how to go about, submitting a comment if you wanted to comment.
Yeah.
And I think Laurie, I apologise if I've got your name wrong. I don't have my emails in front of me. She actually called up the NHMRC and asked them how the public could go about submitting comment about this statement. And apparently she was told that at the moment the NHMRC are taking submissions from the homeopaths, and once the committee has assessed the opinions of the homeopaths, they'll then ask other people further down the track to also submit comment. It just seems a little bit odd to me because I would have presumed if you're going to open up something for public comment, you'd open it up for public comment, not 1 week to the homeopaths and then to the public, then to the doctors or whatever.
Unless they're literally expecting every homeopath to submit and they think they're going to get a flood of mail that they just won't know what to do with.
Well, I mean,
those homeopaths do go,
I know
they're probably going to be gish-galloped.
Well, I know that Fran Sheffield, I think, said she was going to comment, but there was no anything obvious even to say, here's how you submit. And in fact, the other thing was, and this is why I've been talking about it all over the radio, was because the statement was actually sort of said, don't distribute this.
Yeah.
Not for distribution. And it's like, well, how are you going to get comment on a draft statement from consumers and people if you're not even going to allow people to distribute it? And that's why I blogged about it in the first place, because Paul Smith from Australian Doctor, he got a copy of it and he wrote about it, but that's behind a login paywall.
Yeah.
So then I had to blogged it for my blog, and then when I got the opportunity to do the Cosmos thing, I was like, yes, definitely, because that's the #1 science mag in Australia, and at least it's going to get out to a lot of people.
Now, of course, a couple of episodes ago, 3 or 4, you read out that piece for our listeners, and it's so good that you're getting more press coverage for that, and I expect the homeopaths will be on the warpath against you.
Well, I hope they are, and you know what? I don't care.
Bring it on, huh?
The thing is, like today as well, I was given an opportunity to speak for probably about 10 minutes to a guy at the ABC. And I really was emphasising the point that it's a consumer protection issue. It really is.
Yes.
And he said at one point in a long question to me, he started off the question by saying homeopathic medicine. And I had to go back and correct him and say, no, that's a misnomer. It's an oxymoron. It's not medicine. It doesn't work. There's nothing in it, And so my whole sort of push with today's interview was that it is a consumer health issue.
Yeah.
People don't know that it doesn't
But I think
work.
that's one of the problems with this. I was in a pharmacy the other day, which over the years I've watched become more and more filled with nonsense. You look on the shelves and it's just everywhere you turn now. You just can't. You can't turn a corner in the place without seeing absolute rubbish. And I think part of the problem is it's just becoming more and more part of the background. And that makes it a lot harder to have a dialogue about it with the public that has them seeing it as an issue that they should be taking notice of, because they walk into their pharmacies and they see this stuff everywhere, and your pharmacy is somewhere where you go to get medicines, you go to get things that are supposed to help you.
There's an implicit trust there,
exactly.
isn't there?
So if you
trust.
go in there and that's what you see, and everywhere you go, every magazine you pick up, all sorts of natural things are being promoted, and it's just become so much of the background noise now of what's just part of what's out there, and it's just accepted, and people just take it as normal that all these natural therapies are acceptable because they must probably work.
They must be. And it gets back to the point. How is the punter, the average customer, supposed to know that box X works and box Y doesn't if they're both in a pharmacy? And which brings us to the topic and the little clip I played last week from Today Tonight, Dr. H.E., where you, again, getting around the media, appeared on Today Tonight to talk about ear candles, and that's gone down very well. And you were just telling me you heard that was shown in Perth recently.
Yeah, somebody left a comment on my Facebook page saying that they'd seen it, and she's from Perth, and when I asked her if she'd seen it on YouTube or in Perth, she said it was on in Perth.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that if it's aired in Perth and in Adelaide, it might air in Sydney and Melbourne maybe as well.
I hope so. I think it was a great story, and it really made them look out to be completely and utterly stupid and outrageous. And you came over absolutely credible and knowledgeable and very pretty there sitting in that Today Tonight studio.
Oh, well, I put my face on for that, you see.
You did?
I did. I put my face on, yeah. No, I mean, it was funny, wasn't it? Because I think did I mention on the show that we actually shot that about 2 weeks ago? Because you came into the studio with me to prompt me.
Yeah.
And then last Friday I got a call from the producer on a Friday evening as I was walking home to say that because the story was done in Adelaide, but they shot my footage in Sydney, and then Sydney sent the footage to Adelaide to then splice it into the story. Now somehow Sydney sent their footage off to Adelaide and then deleted it from their hard drives in Sydney, and then somehow Adelaide deleted it from their hard drives in Adelaide, and so they lost the footage.
Yeah.
So we had to go back in and do it again.
Yeah.
About 10 days later. Yeah. So.
You mean you got another chance to rant about ear candles? I'm sure that it was a really hard thing for you to do.
Yeah, it was awful, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's quite a process, Joe, because what happens, and we've done this in reverse when I was talking about homeopathy. We sit around the table there where they film it, and Rachel's on the camera, and the producer asks Rachel the question, which then I repeat and give her the answer, which then she repeats back to the producer. You see, it's a bit of a process, but it worked, Dr. H.E.
Yeah, well, it works well because I can't always remember exactly what.
Yeah.
You know, we write the answers to, because they will send you questions, you write the answers, but then you can't always remember what you've written, so it's actually helpful to have someone there prompting you. I mean, I think.
What? I have to ask. Did you have to turn to your computer monitor and randomly click away looking at some important piece of research?
No, she had
I love it when they do that.
She had to look at ear candles.
I had to take some ear candles out of a box and look at them quizzically. Yeah.
Which she did.
No, you know, there is that Chaser skit. I don't know if our listeners remember it, where they said anyone can be turned into an expert if you're shown handing files over to a secretary or walking down a corridor holding onto some important papers or strolling through, you know, the academia of Sydney Uni or something.
Well, that is I think
was a very unhearable bus announcement.
Yes, it's getting a bit noisy in here. More and more people coming in. Never mind, folks, there was a bus announcement, I promise you. Now, we've had some listeners writing into us. A couple of people have commented that they thought it was an odd choice that Maynard interviewed Adam Curry from the No Agenda podcast. Because in some of his thoughts, he's really a bit out there, and certainly stuff that the Skeptic Zone wouldn't endorse as such. But Maynard has a habit of interviewing very interesting and sometimes wacky people. So I was happy to let that one go. But please don't think that we're endorsing the No Agenda podcast. If you want to listen to it, go right ahead. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine, I understand. But thank you for those listeners who have written in expressing their concern. I absolutely take that on board. Another listener, Paul, you call him Paul, which is his name, writes to us with a very interesting question, which I'll summarise in that he's had a family GP, which he's known and trusted for many years. And he asked, how is it that somebody like this, with a good background in medicine for many years, can turn to the dark side and start advocating things like anti-vaccination or conspiracy theories or maybe even homeopathy or whatever it is? Joe, you might be someone to ask about this, being a registered nurse. Have you experienced this?
I haven't worked with any doctors who I've known to endorse any of the things that we are concerned about, like anti-vax or alternative treatments and so on. I certainly haven't known any of that. But and I think that probably is unusual for someone to have always been a, I suppose, conventional medical practitioner and then to suddenly turn.
Yeah.
I think someone who is a strong believer in that kind of thing either always was one or might, I don't know, look, I think it's quite a complicated question. And I think we've seen examples of it. In fact, one of the, looking at it more from the point of view of the doctor who maybe always has dabbled in these things or might end up going this way, I think it was Stephen Barrett from Quackwatch, who actually, and I've actually referenced this a couple of times when I've talked about why some nurses, for example, perhaps, might practice things like therapeutic touch, is that sometimes people who have not done well professionally may turn to other areas that they feel that they can be successful in. So maybe someone who has not excelled in their profession might go into an area where they can make all sorts of wild claims and be seen to be a maverick, and so on. And that's one idea about it.
Or even finding some sort of new credibility within a certain area.
And another way of looking at it also is you might get people who work in areas. I mean, the thing about working in medicine or nursing or any of that kind of work is that, if you look at some of the areas that people work in, like oncology, or people who work in HIV, they're areas of medicine which can be incredibly depressing, and people can actually, I think, lose hope, and particularly not being able to offer their patients much hope when you're dealing with certain things. And I just wonder whether, at some level, people who maybe aren't equipped to cope with some of those things that they have to deal with their patients, with some of the really awful things that we see every day, maybe people who don't cope very well with seeing some of the horrible things their patients have to go through, may, over a period of time, become disillusioned with conventional medicine and start looking at alternatives and have this perception that they are better and gentler and natural.
And I think what might happen is what happens with a lot of these people, be it natural medicine, alternative medicine, or psychics or whatever, is they begin to believe their own powers, what's the word I'm looking for, their own successes, because they get the feedback loop from their patients. The psychic will get the feedback loop saying you're amazing.
Exactly. And if you're not applying critical thinking across the board to what you're doing, then you are in danger of falling prey to a lot of those biases, and you're going to have
your own publicity.
Exactly. So I think it's a very, very complex issue. I think we've got prominent medical people here who we've heaped a lot of criticism on for some of the things that they're promoting and pushing. Indeed. And I think it's easy to dismiss them as just being foolish and or somehow just pushing their own agenda. But I think that it's really quite complex in terms of as we always say, the human psychology behind it is more than just people being stupid or people being silly. And I think when it comes to people who are also, doctors have a lot of power, and I think that there are issues there as well that could be looked at. And I think, also you could say that sometimes someone could just be not a very good doctor. So I'd highly recommend listening to a recent episode of the podcast radio show This American Life, which was, this particular episode was called Old Boys Network, and it was about a Texan nurse. There were actually a couple of nurses involved, but the one in question was a nurse by the name of Ann Mitchell. And Ann reported a doctor in their local hospital who they reported him for basically dangerous practices, and she was facing jail time for utilising whistleblowing laws it was a very, very complicated case, but this doctor was an example of someone who systematically went from, one job to the next, really practicing medicine very poorly, and endangering his patients. And he was also very much a proponent of a lot of alternative therapies and a lot of really quite dangerous and non-evidence-based treatments. And I think he was an example of someone who I think was just not a good doctor. Probably never was. I think it's a very complex issue, and I think in someone like this particular doctor sorry, I've forgotten the name of who it was, that Paul was asking about. This person may have had a life experience that may have changed his views on things, or just become disillusioned with what he was doing. It's complex.
I think you're absolutely right. It is a very complex issue, and it would be different in different circumstances. Paul, I hope that helps you a little bit. Another listener by the name of X for very good reasons. X asks us, try saying that 3 times quickly.
X what?
X asks us.
Oh, no.
X asks us.
Living with a partner for many years, and nice happy marriage, children involved, but the partner has turned to the dark side again, to woo, or to a strange religious cult, or along these lines. And X is finding this situation very difficult to deal with. This is another issue which is very complicated, I think, Jo.
Absolutely.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, it's really hard to give advice in this situation.
Well, what does X want us to do? Fix X's relationship problems?
X would like us to give it some thought.
Skeptic Zone, ask Abby.
It is, ask the Skeptic Zone. No, but it'd be an interesting topic for conversation, because I think a lot of people out there would find themselves in a similar situation.
Look, I mean, I'm lucky enough that that my husband and I both share very similar views about all of this, but I think it really depends on what that person's doing. I mean, I think that in any relationship, people don't agree on everything. There are marriages where one person has a completely different political view to the other, and they somehow manage to build a strong enough relationship that it can overcome those barriers. But when it comes to something like alternative medicine, I guess the thing is, it depends on how it's impacting their life. If for example, if you had a situation where you've got a couple who have children, and
this is the case here, yes.
Yeah, and the person is wanting to, for example, not vaccinate their children because they've become, they've found that they're now opposing vaccination, and the other partner feels the opposite, and that is a very, very difficult situation, and one which could really break down a marriage. But if it's just a matter of your partner going off and dabbling in a bit of homeopathy here or there, as distasteful as that might be, I think it's something that if the relationship's strong enough, you should be able to overcome it. And certainly, you're not going to, like with anything that we deal with, you're not going to be able to get a person to stop doing it by telling them how much you disapprove of it.
No,
because it's just gonna make them, feel that you think that they're stupid, and I think, and in fact, I think a lot of people have talked about this. Brian Dunning's talked about it on his podcast and so on. And I think that it's about just being gentle.
Brian Dunning talks about it in the latest issue of the magazine.
Yeah,
the Skeptic, the Australian Skeptic.
What do you think, Rach?
Well, I happen to know someone who used to go out with someone who believed all that stuff as well. And, I mean, their relationship lasted for a reasonably long time, a number of years. But I think Jo makes the point of, it depends on how serious the issue is. And I'm like Jo, my partner doesn't tolerate any of this stuff. So we loll about it and head desk a lot and, herp dorp and stuff. But yeah, I suppose
It is one of those really knotty issues, isn't it? There's just no clear answer here. And it would depend on the individual circumstances.
But then it also might be, unless it is becoming an issue where your children's health is being affected, as Joe suggested, it might just be better just to not talk about it, I mean...
That's your thing and this is my thing and never
the twain shall meet.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a point where you can't agree, then you just agree to disagree.
I mean, it may get to the point of having to have separate cabinets in the bathroom so that you don't have to open it and look at what horrible, weird products they're keeping in there.
Yeah.
We were talking about it in relation to, for example, if someone's going through a diagnosis of a serious illness and you've got to make a decision about the treatments and, what would you do if your partner, for example, if your partner had been diagnosed with cancer and wanted to go off and try all sorts of, weird therapies, and you didn't endorse that. I mean, it's a really hard situation. Yeah. And what I was saying was that I think, what do you tell people about what to do when someone who's close to you is choosing to do something, or who is asking questions about things that won't work when they've been given a horrible diagnosis? And I think the one way to go about it, which I've suggested, is to just say to a person that they are faced with terrible situation, and that when people have a diagnosis that is very scary, they'll go looking on the internet for information, and what they're going to find out there is going to be very confusing, because you go onto Dr. Google and you see cures and all sorts of offers of things that seem very enticing when you've potentially got something. If a doctor tells you that you have been diagnosed with something that's incurable and the first thing you see is there's a cure, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I think, you could... if it's someone who's close to you, the best way to do it without, making them feel that you're turning them away from those options is to just reassure them that doctors are offering them the best treatments available because they've been shown to give them the best options.
Yeah.
Their doctors don't want to deny them those things, and that the things that are out there, unfortunately, as enticing as they may be, just don't have anything behind them to show them that they work.
Oh, well, you're part of the conspiracy. You would say that.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that I've done in the past too is just emphasise that if you do want to go and try this stuff, then go ahead, but as long as you maintain and you stick to your regime of conventional science-based treatment.
And you tell your doctor.
Yeah, you tell your doctor if you're taking...
Well, this is a very important point. We were just having a quick discussion before we were recording that a lot of people don't tell their doctor that they're taking alternative medicine.
Something like... Well, I've been reading some papers recently on CAM and sort of HIV in particular, and the stats that they come up with is something like 50% of people don't tell their doctor that they're taking CAM. And in cases like, for example, with ginkgo biloba and St John's wort, for example, that those things are contraindicated with highly active antiretroviral therapy with heart. So it can actually modify the way that your drugs work. So it's really important that if you... And I can completely understand that people would want to drink seaweed juices or, get some kind of massage if they've been given been told that they're going to die of cancer in 6 months. But just make sure that you're telling your oncologist that you're doing that and that you're sticking with your evidence-based medicine as well. And whatever else you want to do to make yourself feel better, go for it.
Yeah, I'd agree. Absolutely, I'd agree. I think I'd be hoeing into the peanut butter if I was doing that.
Well,
that would make me feel better.
Can I just make a point there then? Because I make this point in my talk about hair analysis, is that if peanut butter is your favourite thing and you're going to die in 6 months, and somebody does analysis of your hair and says you're allergic to peanut butter and it's causing your cancer, don't listen to them.
Yes.
Eat as much peanut butter as you want. Yeah. Because the equivalent for me would be if some numpty said to me, oh, you're allergic to white wine and champagne, you're going to die in 6 months, so don't drink any of that. Bugger you. That's the best thing I'm doing, is ordering in cartons and cartons of booze.
Yes.
I'm going to die anyway.
And so coming back to X, it was all about what happens if it's your spouse that's doing this.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing is that if you and your spouse have a good relationship in the first place...
Good point.
Then...
Good point. But again, it's one of those incredibly complicated issues.
It depends how far down the rabbit hole they've gone, I suppose.
So. Now, the final topic we'll cover was another email from a listener. Rob Darby, who lives in Victoria, is having issue with the Victorian state school system and their religious education classes, and he has particular issue with a group called Access Ministries who are coming into the schools to give the kiddies the true word of God. And their stated slogan, or the claim on their website, or their missionary position, one might say,
What? Holy moly.
is transforming this nation for God. So that's quite something. Now, he has a 5-year-old son, and so this son's going to be entering the school system pretty soon. He's been writing letters. He's written to the Minister for Education asking for special religious instruction to be removed from state schools. And he's had a long email exchange with the local paper, the Ballarat Courier, where he'll write his point of view and other people come back and write their point of view. And one of the points of view against him, which struck me, was a woman wrote in saying that in her day they had no choice and they had to have religious instruction. Therefore, it didn't do us any harm. Therefore, the children should have no choice these days, which just strikes me as being bizarre. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry you didn't have a choice, but, we live in a better society now, maybe. If you want to find out more...
So hang on a second. So if that argument stands, then what, in the 50s when we didn't have radiotherapy, but we do now, would she not choose that either?
Absolutely.
Numpties.
But this is a big issue at the moment, religious education in state schools, because unlike the United States, where they've got the separation more entrenched in their constitution.
Well, I think we've discussed this before, Richard, and it is pretty entrenched in our constitution.
But it's not enforced. I mean, in all the state schools, my nephews and nieces go to schools where every week there's religious instruction, I was there one day when they were doing it. It was really funny. The bell rang. They said, right, all the Muslims go to this room, the Christians, it's true. The Baptists here, because modern...
How many gods are there? How many rooms do they have there?
A room for every god. Because modern school in Sydney, Australia, there's children there from lots of backgrounds,
Absolutely.
But anyway, Rob is in there fighting for his point of view. And needless to say that I think we broadly agree with his point of view that it shouldn't be in the state schools. He makes the point in his letters that if they want to do it outside school hours or Sunday school or whatever, then that's their right and they're entitled to, and that should be defended even. We all agree on that. But not in our schools, eh? What do you think?
I agree. I think it's a very politicised issue, probably, partly because of the fact that the government is actually funding,
chaplains
in schools as well. So it raises a lot of issues, which, again, people who don't really care either way, and like this person who wrote in and said, well, it didn't do us any harm, so what does it really matter, and everyone should just have to do it. Then, people just aren't going to care about it. But I think people who are secular, who don't want their children, being put in a position where they're having to...
Or being treated like second-class citizens when their religious education is on.
Exactly.
And they say, well, okay, so you're not going, well, you go and sit in the library or you do this.
Well, we should make that point, actually, that if you don't... You do have a choice to not go. But if you choose not to go, currently in most schools, except where the ethics trials are running, you're not allowed to do anything else.
Yeah,
and we had a talk about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
but I thought that the guy who was talking about that, who designed the ethics classes in New South Wales, I think I don't think they have them in Victoria yet, do they? Or anywhere else in the country?
I don't think so. I'm not exactly sure.
And Rob is talking about Ballarat, which is in Victoria. So one of the points that the guy that designed them in New South Wales brought up, which I thought was really poignant, actually, was that if there are kids that choose not to go to that class, and then the kids that go to the religious class, they're taught that, if you're not a Christian, you'll go to hell and you'll burn in hell.
That's right.
And so these kids are coming out of these classes and saying to their classmates, you know that you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're put in this position where they think they can't be friends with their other kids anymore because they don't believe in God.
Really, that
Therefore-
sounds like religion, doesn't it?
But it's
true, yeah.
But it's splitting. Like, his point was, it's actually
It's very divisive.
Yeah, and it's fracturing these kids, and they're so young and they don't understand. And he was actually saying that some of them will come out crying because my mate Bobby, who I hang out with, I can't hang out with him anymore, or he's going to burn in hell because he didn't come to religion class.
Yeah, because he doesn't believe in the deity that, et cetera.
Yeah, and so, I mean, and so this lady that says, well, it doesn't hurt anyone, well, it does in that sense. And, these kids are being sent because their parents are telling them to go as well, same as the ones that aren't going. So it's not the kids' decision to go to the classes, it's the parents. And then it puts the kids in a position where they're thinking their friends are going to burn in hell. It's really awful. So I definitely do it on Sundays, away from that environment, because it's a horrible thing to put kids at such a young age in that situation.
I totally agree. Well,
and I was a Catholic, and look what happened to me.
Well, there you go. Proof positive. Thank
you.
you.
It's not harmful. It is harmful.
Well, thanks, Rob, for writing in. A very interesting topic, which certainly isn't going away, and well done for keeping up your protests through the local paper, the Ballarat Courier. Well, that brings a close, and we've finished our drinks, actually.
I know.
There's just a little bit left. That brings a close to our think tank tonight. Thank you, Joe, for making the long trek.
Why, thank you. Now, can I just ask you, how long is it till town?
3 weeks? Less than 3 weeks.
Not long.
So,
A little over 2 weeks.
13 days or something.
so I just have to say, I am devastated that I'm not going to be at town.
Joe! We had such a great time last time, didn't
did.
we? We stayed up.
did.
Remember, we stayed up and kept drinking so we'd get over jet lag?
And that's when we met Lawrence Loon.
We did.
And I thought he
So
was the
can I
bass
just
player from a
ask-
band because I was so...
Can I ask that at town,
yes.
if the Skeptic Zone table is within pelting shot of the SGU table, please pelt them for me with minties.
I'll pack some Mindies and we'll be doing that, and we'll have an extra portion of crabby legs for you, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we will
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
You can
then.
have mine.
I've got to eat some for Chris Higgins as well.
Do you?
Yes.
All right, I have to eat some on behalf of every Skeptic Zone listener who won't be there.
You just made that up.
I did.
Yeah.
Chris and I think, are going to be drowning our sorrows the week that you're all at town.
Well, Chris already gave me 3 packets of Tim Tams to take over there. So.
The message is, Joe, Tam 10.
Yes, Tam 10 is
10.
on. In fact, there is a Facebook page for Tam 10.
Really?
For
Aussies
yes, started by Chris Higgins. For those of us who will be going to Tam 10. And I think Chris and I are the only people on there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'll join.
Well, in a way, I sort of hope I'm not involved with a TV production so I can actually go and enjoy all of Tam 10.
Somehow,
sort of
Richard,
to
I
the-
don't think that's going to stop you.
I'll still go. Anyway, thank you very much, Joe, for making the long trek. As I was saying, thank you very much, Dr. H. Glad to see you back from your wonderful time in Melbourne.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Richard Saund. Oh, it's me for coming along to the think tank tonight.
Thanks to the kids who are running around.
Yeah, it's turned into a children's playground here tonight. And until the next think tank, which may well be after Tam, I'm not sure. It's cheers. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, which brings us all 1 hour closer to the amazing meeting. Oh, those crabby legs. Oh, boy, I just can't wait. There'll be a few people there from Australian Skeptics, our secretary, in fact, and our treasurer, Jessica Singer and Martin Hadley. They'll be there. Dr. Rachel will be there. I'll be there. And I'm sure a smattering of other Australian Skeptic Zone fans will be there too. Looking forward to it very much. I'm putting together at the moment a show to play while I'm on my way to Tam with bits and pieces so you don't miss out on a Skeptic Zone while I make the very quick trip to Las Vegas and back again. So, thanks again for listening, and for this week at least, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.